everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I've prepared another list video for all of you. Today we're going to be looking at 5 hot take Marvel Omnibus recommendations. This list includes some of my favorite Marvel Omnibuses that are maybe no one's top tier choice. Maybe some have mixed reviews or what have you. But this is a video that I'm hoping to showcase some omnibuses that I just don't think get enough credit. Before we jump in though, I do want to shout out our channel sponsor, OrganicRiceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link for it in this video's description, and if you see something you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's hot take list. First up, in no particular order, for the Marvel Omnibus hot take list, we're going to be looking at Spider-Man Clone Saga Omnibus Volume 1. This is the first volume in a 4-volume omnibus set from Marvel Comics. We have Volume 1 and 2 of this Clone Saga, followed by the Ben Reilly Omnibus Volume 1 and 2. These 4 parts make up the entire clone era for Spider-Man that happened during the 90s. Of course, we have Spider-Man's clone, Ben Reilly, show back up in the city of New York, and let's just say adventures ensue from there. In my mind, if you're a fan of the 90s Clone Saga, this omnibus set is the best way to collect this entire era of Spider-Man storytelling. I think why this is a hot take is this is considered a much maligned era by many people. I think it's overall a very polarizing time in Spider-Man history. I've even heard from commenters that this is the reason they stopped caring about Spider-Man, maybe stopped reading comics in general, but I for one absolutely love this era in Spider-Man. For me, I'm always hit and miss with 90s comics, but this one definitely hits for me. We have exceptional artwork, an introduction of a great new set of characters, and honestly, the idea of a spider clone for me was just such a fun, high science fiction concept that was arguably maybe dragged out a little bit too long, but honestly, it all starts here, and I just think that this is a terrific run. You can see throughout, even as I flip through, there are a handful of artists and writers on this book. We juggle through all of the ongoing Spider-Man titles at the time, I believe, that just basically continued on this story. This omnibus also has like a mini-series and really just jumps into that Clone Saga. These books were long out of print, but Marvel saw fit to reprint all 4 of these omnibuses late last year throughout early this year, and at the time of this recording, I finally got book 4 in this set, which is the Ben Reilly Omnibus Part 2. I think some common criticisms for this era is that it's over-bloated. It took a concept that maybe on premise was pretty engaging and fun and stretched it for years too long. It also just really kind of frayed at the ends as it took over all of the Spider-Man storytelling at this time, and I think a lot of people just got burnt out. I think for my money, though, it was a really fun time for Spider-Man. Maybe it's the 90s kid in me, but this is just peak 90s Spider-Man. We have a lot of appearances from the symbiote characters like Venom and Carnage, along with a few others. So if you're a fan of those characters as well, they definitely make appearances throughout this run. And honestly, I just think it's a blast. I love getting to know the character of Ben Reilly, see the differences between him and Peter, and overall, I just think it's a really fun addition to the overall Spider-Man lore. I do think that this is a hot take because, again, this is a really divisive book and time for a lot of people in the history of comics and Spider-Man comics in particular. But I do think it deserves more credit. I mean, they do keep bringing these omnibuses back, and these do sell out quite a bit. I know so many people like me that were awaiting these omnibus reprints, and so I know that there is an audience of people that really enjoy it like myself. If you maybe are someone that has been considering reading the Clone Saga, but you've been put off based on some reviews, I encourage you to check it out for yourself, whether that means you pick up an issue or two or read it digitally at first. I know Marvel Unlimited is a good service. Maybe just get your feet wet, decide if you'd like it for yourself before just dismissing it. I think if you read only the reviews, you're going to miss out on a really fun story. Next up, we have the Fantastic Four by Mark Millar and Bryan Hitch Omnibus from Marvel Comics. Why this is a hot take for me is because most of the reviews I see on this run are not overly favorable. I've heard a lot of people dismiss this run in Fantastic Four storytelling, and overall, I don't think there was a ton of excitement for it as much as I was excited for this. I couldn't wait for this omnibus to come out. I was so eager to give it a shot. Admittedly, I had the first trade paperback collection that included just the first handful of issues in this run, but I always hoped to come back to this period of Fantastic Four stories one day, and to have it in this beautiful oversized hardcover edition, well, I was elated and I couldn't wait to dive in. And honestly, I burned through this omnibus. This isn't an overly long run, and even this omnibus itself has some really interesting inclusions. Like, we have Marvel, I think it's called 1985, 84, 85. Anyway, it's a miniseries that really doesn't have much to do with Fantastic Four in general, but it's a fun story from Millar and Hitch. We have the inclusion of a miniseries called Fantastic Force, I believe, that's a spin-off of one of the story arcs here, that's not even by all of the creators, but it has to tie into some of the mythos that Hitch and Millar created. So we have those in here. We have some stuff that's only from one of the creators, and we have, again, the proper run that's from both Millar and Hitch. But it's a really interesting time in Fantastic Four. Like I said, this is not an overlong omnibus, but they stuffed it with so many extras and things that I really just do think it's a really fun book and a really fun Fantastic Four read. I know for me, another underrated Fantastic Four omnibus is the Matt Fraction Fantastic Four omnibus, but I've talked about that quite a bit, so I wanted to mix it up, and so my hot take today is the Millar Hitch omnibus. As you can see throughout it, the art is beautiful, once again, from Bryan Hitch. This is the team that brought us the Ultimates. If you've read that, the Ultimate Universe's Avengers, that had an omnibus that got reprinted recently as well. One of the things I like about Bryan Hitch's art is that it's really cinematic in scope. It feels very, very epic, and I really just enjoy it. There's a blockbuster quality to a lot of the storytelling he does visually, and I think Mark Millar has a really good point of view and voice that we get all the way through. This omnibus also doesn't have one master story it plays out throughout the run, like Matt Fraction's run or even Jonathan Hickman's run had. No, instead we have maybe 4 or 5 separate, fairly large story arcs that only loosely lead into one another. I really like that. I feel like the storylines we got were powerful and great, but we didn't have these epically long sagas. We just had really great, tight, Fantastic Four storytelling. I thought the art, like I said, throughout was fantastic, and I just enjoyed having all these moments with the different characters. I do think this run also leans heavy on the science fiction, which is something I love in a great Fantastic Four read. For whatever reason, this doesn't get great reviews, but I just think that that's not deserved. I think it deserves so much praise. It's a really, really fun run, and I just wish more people would give it a shot. This is a great book. I was so excited when it came out, and I was even more excited upon finishing the run. Really, really liked Fantastic Four by Mark Millar and Bryan Hitch, and I'd recommend it to just about any Fantastic Four fan out there, or if you're looking for a modern Marvel Comics read that you maybe haven't checked out yet. Next on our list, we have Captain America by Nick Spencer Omnibus Volume 1. This is Volume 1 of a 2-volume set. Volume 2 is actually scheduled to come out in May of 2024. This run is a hot take because it made Captain America, Steve Rogers, essentially an agent of Hydra. Yes, there's more details that go into that, but that was a big swing that not everyone loved. I certainly understand the kind of polarizing effect that had, but I think a lot of people dismissed this run outright because of that, and I think in doing so, they missed out on a pretty fantastic run, at least from what I've read thus far. So I have only read this Volume 1 omnibus. I actually eagerly await Volume 2. I pre-ordered it. That not only includes the end of this Captain America run, but also includes the entire Secret Empire main event, which I'm really excited to read as well. This book not only gives us a kind of Hydra-dized Captain America in Steve Rogers, but we also have Sam Wilson as Captain America. We have a return of the Cap Wolf. We have Winter Soldiers show up. We have a really fun storyline of a kind of simulated town that might not be all it appears to be. Just some really, really fun stories in this book. I do think that, again, I heard a lot of mixed to negative reviews about this Captain America run, but after enjoying so much of Ed Brubaker's run and some of these other contemporary Captain America reads, I felt like I still deserved to give it a shot. I am a big Nick Spencer fan ever since I read him on Morning Glories over at Image, but anyway, I wanted to check it out for myself, and I'm so happy I did because I ended up thoroughly enjoying this run. I do think, again, this is a hot take because it's not always a beloved entry in the Captain America mythos, but I think it should be one that is experienced. I think a lot of the art we have throughout this book is striking and interesting. We also have a transition from the kind of old super soldier serum drained Captain America to the more youthful Captain America we're all more familiar with. Like I said, all the stuff with Cap and Hydra kind of starts in this omnibus. I know that that made a lot of news headlines, not trying to get into too many spoilers, but that was a big part of this run that a lot of people seem to publicize about, and I honestly think it was handled really well. It's intriguing, it's interesting, lots of great twists and turns, fantastic character moments throughout this. I think if you're a fan of not only Steve Rogers, but also Sam Wilson, this is a really fun time for Captain America. Like I said, I was pretty riveted all the way through this book. I could also recommend Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America, which is another run I don't think gets enough credit either. But for the sake of this video, I went with Nick Spencer. I think partially because I stand by it that it's a hot take recommendation, but also because the Volume 2 Omnibus that finishes out this run is scheduled to come out pretty soon. So it's a great time to jump on board if, like myself, you're hoping to finish it up sometime soon. But yeah, a really great book here. Like I said, I really had a lot of fun with it, and I think that in a lot of modern Captain America books, this is a run that gets overlooked for whatever reason, but I think it's worth checking out, especially if you want something a little bit different. Maybe your Captain America not quite as squeaky clean as you're used to. This is definitely a fun run for you. Also, if you're watching this and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, I would just like to encourage you to do so. I'm always doing comic book lists like this, comic book reviews, unboxings, and I'm even dabbling with a little bit of live stream here and there. Anyway, thank you for considering. Now let's keep this list going. Next up, we have X-Men by Jonathan Hickman Omnibus, here from Marvel Comics. This is definitely a hot take recommendation that I have because I think a lot of people were disappointed at the overall trajectory of the Hickman era of X-Men. I know for me, I'm a huge fan of it. I loved everything after House of X Powers of 10, this whole Krakoa era, Dawn of X, where the mutants become a global superpower, have their own nation state, revive all these previously deceased X-Men. I just think it's a really fun and exciting time to be a fan of Marvel's favorite mutants. Why I wanted to recommend this book here is because I think that a lot of people are dissatisfied with what it collects. It does not include the X of Swords event, it does not include House of X Powers of 10, which kind of kicked off this era, and it doesn't even include Jonathan Hickman's later work in this universe with X-Men Inferno. And I think because of that, a lot of people feel a bit cheated by this X-Men Omnibus. It doesn't even have his full run, again, leaving out those X of Swords issues. But I think if you just kind of ignore this Omnibus because of what it doesn't have, you really miss out on what is here in this collection. I think for me, unlike some of his other runs where we have this big epic idea, beginning, middle, and end, I almost feel like Hickman needed to do more with his time on X-Men, and he kind of left before everything was finished. Granted, he kind of passed the baton to other writers and creators that continued this Krakoa era, but I really wish we would have just had his guiding influence throughout it. But with what we had, it's still a lot of fun. I think this omnibus is better said as Tales of Krakoa Omnibus rather than X-Men, because we rarely see the X-Men as a team fight supervillains together, and rather we have a lot of political interests on the nation of Krakoa, a lot of happenings throughout the island, around the world, trying to preserve their nation, and I think because of that, this omnibus can feel a bit scattered. We have these almost like short stories or vignettes where it feels like every issue takes a handful of X characters or mutants and has them have their own adventure. Sometimes you have subsequent issues that pick up on their adventure, and other times we just go to completely other storylines. I think what we have here is really a lot of fun, though, to give you the kind of slice of life feel of what is going on around this nation, what's happening with all of our main mutants during this time, and I think it really is a good backbone for the rest of the Dawn of X titles. I think that this is such a fun book for what it is. Do I think we should have had House of X Powers of 10 included in this omnibus and maybe Inferno? Absolutely. Do I think there are better ways to map and just collect this time in X-Men history? For sure. But is this still a really fun run and omnibus to own? Absolutely, in my opinion. And that's what's maybe a hot take. I think a lot of people skip out on this or are really dissatisfied where this ended up or what this actually collects. But I think there's still such a fun read in this book. At the time of this recording, you can still find this really affordably at different places, and I think a lot of people are missing out on a really fun adventure. Before reading this, of course, I would recommend reading House of X Powers of 10 by Jonathan Hickman, but after that, I think you're free to pretty much jump right in. Gorgeous art throughout, and honestly, a really fun X book, at least in my opinion. And last, but certainly not least, on my Marvel Omnibus hot take recommendation list, I'm going to be talking about Captain Marvel by Kelly Sue DeConnick. This omnibus includes her entire run on this title, and frankly, this book was a blast. This is one I read and reviewed on the channel some time ago, but this is one I almost only hear negative reviews about, and I frankly don't understand. I think that this is a very publicized run on this title. This is where Carol Danvers takes on the mantle of Captain Marvel, and I think a lot of people decided to make this some kind of woke piece or some kind of feminist in a negative way slant kind of journalism about this run, and I frankly don't understand this. I honestly think that this was a very, very effective title with a lot of great, strong lead characters, both male and female, and honestly, I just think it's a great run. I think if I had listened to some of the negative reviews I had heard about this book, I would have missed out on a truly fun superhero read. This book from cover to cover was so thoroughly entertaining to me and got me so interested in the character of Carol Danvers and some of her supporting cast, I actually went on to buy the first of the Captain Marvel by Kelly Thompson omnibuses just because I wanted to explore further adventures with Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel. But honestly, this omnibus by Kelly Sue DeConnick is such fun. We have so many different artists attached to this book as well. We have a really good array of visual styles throughout this collection, so you get a little bit of different artists throughout, and I think that it really makes this entire run feel a lot more diversified than just having the same creative team throughout all of it, especially when you still have DeConnick's voice throughout all of it. It's cool to see some of the artists kind of change hands. We have some great storylines, like I said, her taking the mantle of Captain Marvel. We have her adventures on Earth, a little bit in space. We have, again, some of her supporting cast. We have previous Captain Marvel or Marvel characters. And overall, this was just really, really fun. Like I said, a really strong female lead in this, and a lot of just interesting kind of science fiction plot lines, straight-laced superhero narratives, and it just really made me care about this central character. Admittedly, I didn't know a ton about Carol Danvers as a character before reading Captain Marvel, so I can't really speculate on whether or not Kelly Sue DeConnick really changed the nature of this beloved character. Maybe that's a valid argument, but as someone that went in fairly blank slate to the character of Carol Danvers and Captain Marvel, I thought that this was a really fun one. To that end as well, this is an omnibus I could absolutely recommend to new readers who maybe know nothing about this character and just think that this is an interesting sounding run or character in general. Maybe you've seen the Captain Marvel movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and just want to read more. I think that this is a great place to start. I think if you're just looking for something different or a strong female character or set of characters, I think that this run by DeConnick is really great. But again, overall, I think that this is a hot take because for whatever reason, I've just seen so much negative press about this book, and I think it's so unfair. I think that this is such a wonderful read, and honestly, this was such a page turner for me. I'd recommend it to just almost any Marvel comic fan out there. It's just that fun. And for that matter, the Captain Marvel by Kelly Thompson, I'd also recommend. A totally different vibe, but still really a blast with this character. Anyway, don't miss out on Captain Marvel by Kelly Sue DeConnick. Okay, and that's already going to wrap up 5 hot take Marvel Omnibus recommendations. This is a list I've been thinking about for a while, and it just is a good way to showcase books that maybe not everyone is recommending. This is maybe not your A-list top-tier recommendations that every Marvel fan is reading, but these are frankly all titles that I really enjoy that I just want to share more about. Whether they were unfairly reviewed in the general consensus, or maybe I just wanted to shine a greater spotlight, I think all of these books were a ton of fun. I have reviewed a handful of them on the channel, so if you'd like more information about them, you could seek out some of those other videos. I'll try to tag some if I'm able. Meanwhile, in the comments, what are some of your favorite Marvel Comics runs that you don't think get enough credit? Maybe you have a hot take comic book recommendation. I'd love to hear all of that in the comments section. I'd love for it to just look like a great kind of recommendation list of maybe just off the beaten path recommendations that not everyone's talking about. Anyway, again, thank you so much for watching and sticking with me. I always appreciate your likes, your comments, and your time. And until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave that like, maybe share your opinions in the comments section, and check out another video on your way out. Thanks so much and have a good one.